If we look at our industry and we understand how the culture has kind of created the illusion that you have to know a lot about wine in order to enjoy it, it makes sense why wine snobs feel obligated to behave in the way that they do. It's just a lack of information. So I decided to create videos where I could connect to the wine snob, but also educate the person who was interested in wine but didn't feel like they were welcome. I started creating these personalities of people I was seeing in the wine industry because I wanted everyone to feel seen, but I also wanted everyone to know that you are safe, at least on my page.
Welcome to the Italian Wine Podcast. I'm Cynthia Chaplin, and this is Voices. Every Wednesday, I will be sharing conversations with international wine industry professionals, discussing issues in diversity, equity, and inclusion through their personal experiences working in the field of wine. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and rate our show wherever you get your pods. Hello, this is your host, Cynthia Chaplin, and today I am thrilled to have Isis Daniel with me on Voices. Isis is known as the Millennial Somm by her 12.7 thousand followers on Instagram, with a mission to cultivate the next generation of wine lovers via entertainment, education, and authenticity. She's the founder of Elevage LLC, and she was named a Wine Enthusiast 40 Under 40 Tastemaker in 2021. She's also a TikTok sensation with almost 150,000 followers who tune in to catch her tasting videos and enjoy her amazing sense of humor as she brings inclusivity to the world of wine. So, totally up my street, Isis. I'm so happy to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. Let's get into it.
Let's get it doing. All right. So, first of all, how did you get into wine originally? I know you got into hospitality as a server and a social media manager, but how did you move into the wine sector properly where you are now?
Yes, so my journey into wine, as you said, began in hospitality. Of course, learning all the basics of serving wine, presenting wine. But it was actually my mother who was, as I like to say, Periscope famous for all the people who remember that platform from years ago. By the way, just a little note for people who are used to going on Instagram Live or any other lives. Periscope was the founding father of that from its original platform. But at that time, my mother was very popular on Periscope, and she met a Somm who, pretty much heard my mother talking about me enjoying wine, and she wanted to connect with me directly. So while I am at work in the restaurant, I was managing at the time in the back. I had a phone call with Maya Parrish, and she pretty much just said, we need more African American women in this field. If you have an interest in wine, I encourage you to go to your local wine school at Capital Wine School here in DC and just see if you like it. And that's exactly what I did. I went to that first class and I fell in love.
Well, thank you to Maya because she is so right. We need more women of color. We need so much more diversity in wine. And I'm sitting here, I'm a white woman, so believe me, I see this lack. So, if I can see it, everybody should be seeing it. And it's great that you went in, through the door of education because I'm sure you've seen this too. Anybody these days who can hold a wine glass while wearing a bikini is suddenly a wine expert. So I've got problems with that. And I love the fact that you got education. you you're a serious player, so I really highly approve of that. And I think it's a great way in. How did you find the education in DC?
Oh my gosh, I fell in love. Number one, shout out to Capital Wine School. Anyone who's in the area, I highly recommend. Even if you're not interested in being a wine professional, they offer, great classes and workshops just so that you can brush up on your wine knowledge, learn more about regions, and just be a great wine enthusiast or wine professional if that's what you choose. Um,
And like have fun.
yes,
People see wine school and they think, "Oh God, I don't know enough to go into wine school." No, go have fun.
as let me just say this. Wine is probably it's intense, right? So yes, I'm level 3 WSET. Yes, taking that through Capital Wine School like we're talking about. But the truth is we are talking about wine. So you get to drink wine as you study. I don't think it's you, do you get what I'm saying? It's a bit fun to be able to explore.
Oh, my friend, I am a professor of Italian wine and culture, and I have university students in Rome who are on their semester abroad. And my class is packed out because, who doesn't want to take wine class while they're on their semester abroad? And, I hate to break it to them, they have to have a midterm and a final and write a paper. But I do love to grab those people when they're so into it and so excited about it, and before they, get jaded, and let them have fun. Wine is supposed to be fun. Yes, it's intense. I'm a WSET educator. It's intense, but it's, the reason we all got into it is because it's fun.
Yes, it's fun, and I love the history. I think, I was a late bloomer when it comes to appreciating history in the way that I do now, but there's just something special about wine, especially when you are able to study abroad or simply just travel and go to these different wine regions, but wine is woven throughout history, and it makes this bigger picture of our world and how diverse it is much clearer. So I mean, I just think that wine is it's everything. I love it. I will fight for it every day because I just believe it is the central piece that has always been about connectivity, no matter what culture you're from.
Okay, well, we're going to be friends
Yes,
forever
we
now.
will. Hello.
Well, I know, at this point in history, as we're saying, the COVID pandemic is part of everybody's history. So, for better or for worse, I know that really you were pushing so hard on your social media during that time, not only to reach out to your followers, but also working with wine brands and bringing them into the social media world. You used that pandemic time in a really positive way. So, tell us what you were doing, during COVID, and how people reacted to all the content you created.
You know, it's so funny. I actually recently was talking about this time, and some people know if you've been following me for a while, but others don't know that during the pandemic, my father was actually sick. In fact, he passed away, came back, and had to learn how to walk. And he's a musician, so even playing the guitar, he had to relearn how to play. And it's so that time was a very precious time for me because I wasn't actually able to be as active on my page as I wanted to be. But all I had was consistency, right? And that's something that we talk about within the digital marketing world, content creation. It's all about consistency. And so I stuck to my Tasting Thursdays, where I posted every Thursday, just rating and talking about wines, usually using my studies to help educate others and practice what I was studying on these platforms. But it was just all about consistency for me. Once my father was better, I ended up going and taking care of my great aunt. So yes, I am the family nurse.
Oh my word.
um,
You need wine.
you need one, right? But it was a blessing to be able to be in that space and to support my family. But they also supported me, both my aunt and my father. They allowed me time to make a video really quickly, edit it, do all the things, post. But I was a full time nurse. Once they both were in a better position health wise, that was when I went full throttle. And I think it was okay, let me start over. At the beginning of the pandemic, I was working at a wine bar. That was something my mentor told me I should do. Yes, I was working hospitality, but I needed to focus more in wine as that was going to be my career. So I was working at Screwtop Wine Bar in Clarendon, Virginia. Shout out to them. And then I was furloughed. The plan, to speak to what you said earlier about using that time wisely, I knew I didn't want to leave the pandemic the same way I went in. So I worked extremely hard while I was taking care of my people, but then also after, just to make sure that I figure out who I want to be in this space. And the only way you can do that is by actively participating in it. So again, I was consistent when I could be when I was taking care of my father and my aunt. But then later, once I had the freedom to truly dive in completely, I did everything I could to be authentic, to be well informed, and to really be the image that I wish I could see within the social media space in connection to wine.
That is such a good point. Like there are so many times uh, where we don't see ourselves in the arena that we want to get into, and turning yourself into that person and inspiring other people was something that you did really, really well. you've got a few alternative personalities on your social media that are really fun, really engaging. So, what made you start up using these like amazing alter egos? They are super fun. So tell us about each one of them and how you got the idea for these, because it's very unique.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny because I feel like I'm just going back in time in memory lane right now, and if, my voice were a little stronger, I would definitely sing Minnie Rippleton's "Back Down Memory Lane." Okay, I did it. Woo! Alright, so, I actually while again, this is during the time I was taking care of my great aunt, actually, and I made a parody video where I had to buy a wig. The wig wasn't expensive, but it was enough money where I felt like I need to do something else with this wig because I bought it to make fun and to, in jest, make a video. But I decided that I wanted to use a lot of my experiences from hospitality in the videos because while I was working at Screwtop, I encountered many wine snobs.
Oh, don't we all? They're out there. It's a thing.
You know, but I they are everywhere. And I don't know, at the time when I decided to make this video, just like, okay, I'll reference my experience. I remember having immense empathy for the wine snob because the truth is they just want to know. And if we look at our industry and we understand how the culture has kind of created the illusion that you have to know a lot about wine in order to enjoy it, it makes sense why wine snobs feel obligated to behave in the way that they do. It's just a lack of information. So I decided to create videos where I could connect to the wine snob, but also educate the person who was interested in wine but didn't feel like they were welcome, and then also nod to the loving people like yourself who understand wine, understand that it's a space for everyone. So I created Suzanne, the wine snob, to represent. Yes, you can. Sometimes people will come hard and can be disrespectful in how they are trying to, I guess, assert their dominance in a field. But love is always the first answer, the first response. Education next, right? And so I started creating these personalities of people I was seeing in the wine industry because I wanted everyone to feel seen, but I also wanted everyone to know that you are safe, at least on my page. And I mean, I didn't expect Suzanne to become that popular. I mean, TikTok ate
Oh,
her up.
anybody
Oh
who
my
hasn't
goodness.
seen Suzanne the Wine
Um,
Snob needs to go on the Millennial Somm right now because it is hilarious.
And the thing is, I took a break. I realized I was starting to become a wine comedian. And I think now that I'm older, oh, here we are. You talk about jaded in the beginning of the the interview. You start to grow up and you start to realize who you want to be and how you want to be perceived. And I think this is the first time I'm going to say this out loud, so you get the exclusive. I think I took Miss Suzanne for granted. Um, the image of being a wine comedian felt like I was not being respected for the studying, for the work that I've done. And it made me feel that I almost had to silence her so that could be myself. But the truth is, Suzanne was me. As much as I was being, yes, I was writing these skits and acting, but the truth is, I was able to show the world love through wine. And I'm actually going to be reintroducing, I don't know if it's going to be Miss Suzanne specifically, but I will be reintroducing personalities to my platform again because I need people to see an example of care because we are so far away from gentleness and understanding and grace. And we have to remember that that is a core part of wine, not the image that we're used to seeing in media, but really, if you pay attention to the relationships, you go behind wine, you see that there's a care and a delicacy that is nurtured within the space. And so she will be coming back. It's been a little while, but she will be back.
I'm sure she'll be back older and wiser too. But I love what you said about people needing to see an example of care and love and welcome. I live in Italy, so I get to live that story with my producers when I get to go and see them. But that's not the case of most average wine drinkers around the world. You don't get to go to your favorite vineyard in France if you're living in Iowa or whatever. So I think you know
doing that in a caring and loving way is so important because it does make people feel welcome and wanted. And it tells the Suzannes of the world it's okay not to know everything. There's still wine's one of those great things. I love working in wine because you can never know everything. Every vintage is different, every year is different. You never get bored. So I love Suzanne. I hope she comes back, or maybe a friend of hers. Um,
Suzanne will be back, so will Chardonnay, so all the personalities, they will definitely be back. I am focusing more on wine culture now. I love that you were talking about Italian wine culture because if you don't know, my father as well, we are low-key Italian in our hearts. I love going to Italy. It is I mean, every time I go to Italy, I feel like I'm home, specifically in Sicily. But yeah, love Italy, and I'm going to be focusing on nurturing wine culture. That's the that's the business, right? I think that right now we have so many subcultures within the United States and abroad that loves wine. And we're so focused on the decline of interest and consumption. Of course, we have all these other attacks going around us. But what's important to me is that we nurture the people that are already here. And so being a voice to that and then also being a representation through acting and writing skits, I think is a great way to allow people to see how different cultures are able to mingle and get to know each other and be one within one space.
that is a great point. I think we are focused quite a lot on this potential crisis. I personally think it's a little blown out of proportion, but that younger people aren't drinking wine, and people who are new to wine aren't getting into wine. And I think we are sort of losing sight of the people who are already here, who are already in the space, and who want to, carry on in pretty much what's a minefield at the moment with U.S. Surgeon General's report coming out, and all of these conflicting reports that have all come out in the past, weeks and months. People don't know what to think. So I love your idea of nurturing wine culture and nurturing people who are already in the space. We don't want to lose those people either. I mean, I've been in wine for 25 years, and even I feel quite, depressed at the moment because it looks pretty gloomy. So we need more people like you. And you and I are both educators. We're both podcast hosts. Obviously, we both feel very passionate about DEI in the wine industry. Even DEI is not something that people want to be talking about lately. It
Oh my
seems.
gosh, it's insane.
I know.
It's ridiculous.
Well, it is, but we all know that there's this real sort of definite lack of accessibility and intimidation due to exclusivity and language that keeps people out. I hate the fact that wine language, the way it was constructed, let's face it, by old fat white men in England in the
My goodness.
1950s. Um, I can say whatever I want.
And say it because is it
It's
true?
true.
Okay, then. All
But
right.
that language really keeps people out. And as you said about bringing in other cultures, I travel, you travel. I eat lots of food from all over the world. Not everybody knows what a gooseberry is anymore. So, how are you dealing with all these issues in your work? What would be the one thing you'd like to see change in the wine industry to improve the challenges that people like us face? Trying to teach about wine or help people get into the wine business.
Right. One thing my mother always says, and she's a major influence in my life, I talk about her all the time. You find what you're looking for. I think we as an industry need to do a better job of how we depict our industry. Again, with us hyper focusing on the decline, it paints a picture that wine is losing, people aren't drinking it, and there's no hope. As you said, you felt that way, I felt that way, and I think my travels, and talking to different cultures and different groups of people who love wine has let me know that, oh, this is just a media issue. We need to show people enjoying it, and we need to also come together as a collective and spread correct information about the data. That is something in the future that I'm getting into. Data storytelling is definitely a new focus of mine because I feel data is not only the future, is the present. And we are already seeing how so many people misrepresent what the findings are to fit their own narrative. And the truth
Oh
is,
my
I
goodness. Yes,
what
they do.
and okay, I'm going to go back to something that you said. And I know it's controversial because I'm in wine, but I am not against younger people abstaining from alcohol for the time being. We've already seen time and time again that people will cycle drinking alcohol and then not drinking alcohol. It's just a cycle of life. People will always come back to drinking alcohol. We know that from the prohibition. They never even stopped. It's important to recognize that wine is never going to go away. So if wine is never going to go away, us hyper focusing on the loss, because it's not just wine, it's alcohol as a whole, is reaching a decline. I recently did a talk in Italy about this. It's happening. Okay. But why can't people be concerned about their health? Why can't people do things to cleanse? What I don't like is the misinformation about cancer, and it's linked. It's a very dangerous game. And I remember for on my podcast I had Felicity Carter, who actually just recently today put out another article about this, and
They're
it's
pouring out, thank
oh my
goodness.
goodness,
Yep.
it's
And
rough.
Felicity's great.
Yes, she's amazing. It's difficult. It's difficult listening to agendas that go against the truth in the data. So what I believe we have to do, and what I want to see our industry do, is not just host private events with influential people, because even though that is very important, we have to have that. It can't be the only thing. What we have to do, which I've been saying to the wine industry for the last 5 years, is correctly utilize our influencers. I think that a lot of journalists in the wine industry has kind of had turned their nose up to digital content creators because, again, as we've said before, a lot of them aren't actually educated in wine. But the reality is, how many of our consumer base is a wine professional? Okay, not many. There's only a small percentage of us who are.
A tiny proportion, a tiny proportion.
Exactly, right? So that means that having influencers who speak directly to consumers, they are important because they are them. It's our job to reach out to them. It's our job to say, hey, I love your work. I love your content. Hey, this is a little bit of extra information if you want to use this, because it's going to help the industry and it's actually going to help your following. We need to come together as a community instead of feeling that we have to continue the same culture and narrative where we get to say, not you, but you can come to the table. No, they're already at the table. Yep. Well, no, come and
Yeah,
talk to me.
I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. And again, we're right back to the beginning of what is inclusivity? Either you mean it or you don't mean it. And there is space for everyone in wine. Wine's not going to die out anytime soon. It's been on the planet for 8,000 years. I think we're pretty safe. Yeah, it's not going anywhere. But we want to open up the door and get more people at the table and fill them in and make them feel wanted and support their point of view. People's perspectives are different. I have 6 kids that range in age from 24 to 32, and they're all very different perspectives. They're like my own little in-house test market. It's important that we including people whose perspectives are different from ours is just as important as including new to wine people. So I'm really, really on board with that whole thing. Just talking about sort of what we started to say a little bit before all of this, both you and I have WSET certifications, and they're great. Basically the only globally recognized certification for wine. But we can all say that WSET is not exactly easy for people, who are coming from cultures other than white and Anglo-Saxon. This is the problem. A lot of our influencers are not from those cultures. They don't want to engage with what is very rigid. WSET, for all its value, and it's very, very valuable, it's a very rigid system, and it doesn't fit everybody these days. So, it drives me crazy, and I try to break down these barriers whenever I'm teaching. Um, how has your experience been? You said you're doing level 3 now, which is a pretty deep dive. It's a big change from level 2. So what would you like to see change within like formal wine education? We're in agreement that we need to not be so formal anyway, but everybody's going to have a certification if they want to become a professional at some level. So, how can we change wine education?
Yep. I actually completed my level 3 with merit, I think in 2022. And one thing that I wish we could see more. I hate the lexicon. Okay, I said it. I was gonna try to find a better way to say it, but it's just not I think reasonable.
I
Um
generally tend to say the lexicon needs to be revisited.
yes. And I mean, no one agrees with me. I'm not gonna say no one, but very few people
Oh,
agree with
lots of
how
people
I
don't.
feel. Well, I think that we need to reevaluate what the universal lexicon is going to be. And I think that we also need lexicons that fit, certain regions more accurately. So pretty much being you have one for the United States based on what as a culture would understand and be able to identify. And then have the universal one. I think that when we talk about people in China, we talk about all these other countries that have different aromas and flavor profiles that they can identify. Um, it speaks actually better to the consumer that they are speaking to. So I think that we have to do a much deeper dive. And I know there's another woman, I've been saying this for years, but there's another woman who actually has been doing the work. Unfortunately, I cannot remember her name, but I can see her face clear as day. But this conversation about updating the lexicon is happening, but it needs to happen for the sake of, since we're all concerned about the decline of interest in consumption, this is going to help that increase because you're going to be speaking people's language rather than speaking at them and them feeling like this wine business is not for them. And when I say wine business, I'm talking about consumers and professionals, potential professionals. So I think that it needs to be updated for sure.
Yeah, I think you might be talking about Alice Achayo, the wine linguist.
Yep.
Yep,
Yep. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
she's amazing. She's out in Oregon nowadays, but she was one of the first people, sort of 6, 7 years ago, to really put her finger on this problem. And I love what Alice is doing. And I think surprisingly, there are a lot more of us in the wine education sector and in sort of professional positions in the wine industry who really agree with this, that we, in order to maintain the people in the space that we have and to throw the doors open so new people can come in a comfortable way, we've got to take a look at language. We all know how important language is on a daily basis, and there's no reason that we should still be working with a lexicon that was dreamt up, sort of 75 years ago. So, and we know that global markets are opening. There are big global markets for wine now in Japan and Taiwan and South Korea and Singapore and all of these places, and this lexicon just doesn't work. It also, a lot of African countries now, we've got top sommeliers coming out of all different countries in Africa, and we need to readdress this to make people feel like it's something that belongs to them instead of some sort of window they have to break to get in. So,
It's crazy because it does belong to them. You spent your money on it. So why can't you talk about it? Why can't you feel comfortable with it?
and
It's
it's not how
it's
people talk
egregious.
about wine anymore. It really isn't. Nobody walks into a wine store and says, "I want a high acid, low tannin, medium bodied bread." No one says that.
No. I
um,
mean, I don't know. I still leave space for people like that. And the reason why I say that, again, remember my mission is nurturing the evolution of wine culture and community, right? And I believe that to begin in wine, maybe not. But I do believe that after a certain point of interest, you start to pay attention to the different nuances that make wine wine. And that language, I believe, is beautiful and is still relevant. A few months ago, back in October, I was pouring at the Congressional Wine Caucus, and there was a very seasoned wine journalist that was there. And when he was talking to me, he was saying, "Oh, yeah, well, no one really cares about my kind of writing anymore." It it broke my heart because I know deep down that that's not true. There's still an audience for you. There are still wine nerds. We exist. And I think that what we have to do as professionals is recognize that there's a space for everyone. And we already occupy these tables. It's just that people choose to ignore that the table is important or has relevance. So to me, I think inclusion is not the action of saying what's not important or what's not relevant. Inclusion is paying attention that if someone is there and they have a voice and they are telling their story from their perspective, there's someone else who's going to listen. And it's our job as a community to help you find your people. Um, I really believe that wine language and how we communicate it, I think that the energy behind it, the love behind it should change, but I still think wine language is quite beautiful. And it brings up a book by my girl Chastity Cooper. Whoop, whoop. But she has the wine convo generator. It's a book, but it's a game book where you're able to play around with different wine phrases. But I think that if we are able to approach it a little bit differently, we can still preserve the art of talking about wine, but our intention behind it will be more inclusive rather than trying to, and I hate the word gatekeep because everyone overuses it now, but instead of gatekeeping, we can create a space where you can evolve into a space where you can appreciate wine language in the way that, we do as wine professionals.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that's why I tend to talk about revisiting the lexicon. There's no need to throw it away, but you know, expanding it to encompass, you know, the way that people live their lives, the way that people eat and enjoy wine now has really changed. And we have this, as you said, it's a beautiful way and a global way. I can go and talk to my, colleagues in Kazakhstan, and if I'm using that terminology, they know what I mean. So it's a beautiful foundation on which to build, and it's, as you said, it's our job now to build on that foundation, and we really haven't changed it much in all these years, and it's time. So um,
And I have a question to ask about that, right? Okay, I know I'm flipping the podcast over, but it's my question to you is why do we as professionals, especially seasoned professionals who have been here. So I'm not even talking about myself per se. I still consider myself to be young, though I am seasoned. Um why do we feel we need to wait for permission to make certain changes?
that is a good question. So luckily, I am older than you by quite a lot, and it's fantastic because as you get older, you don't care what people think, and you feel a little bit more confident, or at least I have found my confidence and being able to say things that I really believe in a way that I try not to, be offensive or put anybody off in the wine world, but I don't feel that I should. I think it's incumbent upon me to say what I really believe. I have a lot of experience behind me. And if I don't see anything, then that's my bad. I'm not contributing. And in fact, I'm damaging the industry that I love. So it is a good question. Why do more people not speak up? And I think that more people are. I've seen a big change in the past decade. And I'm hoping that we will get, more people like you. This is why I do this podcast, because I really, really feel passionate about getting this industry to be, more in tune with the world the way we live in it now. And, everybody who wants to get involved in wine, from, just buying their first bottle to, taking their 10th certification course, everyone should feel welcome. Everyone should be able to get involved, and it's our job to make that happen. So I think that's an awesome question. Why do more people not lift up their voice and say, "Hey, I'm not good with this anymore"? We should. We
Yeah.
should.
Yeah, and we need to do it as a collective. I you should have seen me this morning. Oh my goodness, I was sending out so many articles to all of my friends in wine, and I'm like, okay, enough is enough. Can we come together and put our foot down on some things? Can we correct narratives and as a collective go online and just flood the internet with the truth? Because our voices matter. Like we have all of these followers collective, right? I don't care if you have 300 over here, 2,000 over here, and a million over there. Together, we are able to have a united voice. And I think as an industry, we got to do better. We have to do better in saying if we agree on this point, then we as a unit need to attack this point. I want to see that more in the industry. And I told you, as of this morning, I'm on the move.
Well,
Okay,
I'm
because
I'm glad, and I know you're sick, so I'm sure you'll be more on the move when you're better.
right.
But it's interesting because 750 Daily, who I love, they published a report not long ago that showed that only 2% of wine industry professionals in America identify as black, but 84 identify as white. So I'm sure it's even worse in Italy. In fact, I know for a fact that it is. And we've already said, millennials and zillennials and everybody else, are much more diverse in race and individuality. And we've said we know they're not drinking that much wine. I'm not bothered by that. My husband doesn't drink at all, so I live in a very interesting household. But how can we, promote and demand more diversity, from our industry in opening up career paths to these people? Because sometimes they're, the young people, not only are they not drinking wine, but they don't see it as a possible career path the way that we did back in the day. You could be a somm, you could be an educator, you could be a master of wine, any of these things, a journalist, all of these things. But young people don't see wine as a career now. How can we get our industry to open up possibilities and paths into the wine world for younger, more diverse, more individually different people?
That is a loaded question, so I'm going to try to attack it as best I can. Number one, again, it always goes back to media. We need to show people that these jobs exist. When I first started doing my Tasting Thursday interviews live on Instagram during the pandemic, that was what my mission was, showing the wine lovers behind wines for wine lovers. And the mission again was to show people who were passionate about this work, understand their stories that brought them to this place, because most wine professionals, at least here in the United States, they were in other fields and weren't satisfied with their lives and wanted to implement some type of creativity. And then they discovered that, oh, I could do this in wine. Scientists, writers, I mean, the list goes on. Teachers, whoever you are, there's a space for you in wine. I use my platform to showcase that. But when it comes to DEI, I think where we went wrong as a community, we did the right thing about opening up the doors for people to gain education. But after education, people really were on their own. I think that right? A lot of companies said that they were in support of DEI, but I can firmly say in the United States, we had this boom of diversity in the beginning of the pandemic. And then even now, a lot of people, a lot of businesses currently are going back on their word of what they were going to do for DEI. And I think that it's a money and a greed conversation. And I think that there's a way more dialogue that we would have to have about that. But there are companies out there that are doing the work. The first company that comes to mind immediately is Urban Grape, where they are helping people through their education, but then also helping them to be able to have actual jobs after their education. And I think that that's what we need to do within our industry. If you're going to help them all the way. Give these people jobs. Social media and content creation is shifting, and wine already feels kind of uneasy. It's such a layered conversation because we have to think about the economy, we have to think about just jobs that are available. It's hard out here right now to be in wine, and that's just a reality. Um, but we have to be able to not only educate but provide stable jobs after education so that people can continue to thrive and grow in their careers. So that's my answer, but I don't know if it's a great one.
Well, no, I completely agree with that. And there are, as you said, there are instances of people, women of the vine and spirits, and Curious Vines in London, places like this are doing mentoring projects and helping people connect with actual jobs and be able to get scholarships and things so that they can travel, so that they can learn. But there aren't enough. You're absolutely right. And when we look at things that are happening now in the face of possibly new tariffs and all of these other scary issues, Southern Glazer is in trouble. A lot of big importers and distributors are dialing back. You're right. It's a scary time to be in wine. And that's why I wanted to talk to you today, because you have a very positive attitude, as I do. I don't feel daunted by this. Occasionally it's depressing, again, all of these, all of these reports that, are just thrown out there with terrifying headlines and then actually no informational support. I don't agree with that at all. But this is my industry and I love it. And yeah, I agree with you that we have to do more to connect people, not just with wine education, but actual jobs, and understanding that those jobs exist is key. We have to show that more. And I know that you are, in a very good position to do that. And, after you got named a Wine Enthusiast 40 under 40 tastemaker, you know, what changed in, in your career trajectory? What are you doing now? What's a day in the life of Isis Daniel like at the moment? Not today because you're sick, but normal.
So after 40 under 40, it changed a lot for me in a positive way. A lot of traveling, a lot of collaboration deals, and really being able to push my mission forward. I think that I mean, everything happened super quickly. I was already kind of growing, right? But once that 40 under 40 happened, the partnerships I was able to have, the brands I was able to work with, just the people I was able to connect with, it was absolutely a beautiful, beautiful time. And I believe that that time is what has grown me to be who I am right now. My mission at that point, I wasn't really sure what I was doing. I knew that I knew I wanted to connect with consumers and help bridge that gap from professional world and wine experience to consumers. But I think what ended up happening is that influx of success made me look around and see what was actually going on. I was able to walk into rooms that I don't think I would have been invited to before. I was able to have conversations and give my point of view that challenged I think challenge minds of people who have been in this business for a while with a new fresh perspective. And that was just I look back on it and I was like, I'm so young, but it was a beautiful time. Now I am, don't laugh at me because I know what I'm going to say. You're going to be like, oh, she's a baby. But now I'm 30 and I look at that whole journey to lead me to this place where I recognize we have a people issue, and I specialize in connecting with people. That time taught me to accept who I am and to utilize the innate ability of empathy and love to connect and to bridge gaps. And so that's exactly what I'm doing right now. Times have changed. Social media world is a little shifty. Wine is a little shifty. We're in a weird space. I think all in all, if you are in digital content creation and in wine, it's strange. However, as you've said time and time again, there's a hope that I have right now that I can't quite explain. I've been trying to figure out what's next and how I'm going to approach this next mission. And I know that I'm still, ironing out a lot of the details. But right now, my main focus is on culture. So I am doing research on culture. I am currently writing a book, believe it or not. I am, getting ready to go back to doing my tasting Thursdays. That will be launching this. Well, I'm not sure. I'm not going to say this Thursday, but it's launching. And I'm going back to basics. All of that growth allowed me to experience so much. But I believe when I look throughout my journey, that where I was when I first began in just understanding basic human connection was not only what drove the authenticity of my content, but it was also what drove people to me and created this community of safe exploration of wine. We have to get back to that safety.
Absolutely. And I love that you're 30. I would never say you're a baby because I really think it just denigrates, the effort you've put in. And, whether you're 20 or you're 30 or you're 50 or you're 80, if you're studying and you're working, um, then you get the kudos for those things. But the other thing I love about the fact that you're 30 is you're brave. Bravery is for the young. And you've got time. And I think, people like Felicity and me and Karen McNeil and, all of uh, these women who have been in the wine world longer, Julia Coney and, lots of people in the US as well. We are so excited to have people like you who are 30 and talking about the things that we hold dear and think are so important. And you have a totally new way of addressing those issues, which is super needed. And I'm going to ask you, the really bad question, because, well, it's not a bad question. It just is what it is. But we know that there's this potential TikTok ban coming in the U.S. As you said, the social media world is a bit shifty. Everything's a little bit, out there. I'm glad I don't have young kids right now. But you had great, huge success on TikTok. What do you think about the potential ban of TikTok? And then this is something that I'm throwing out there, and whatever you say, I will take it as it comes because you are a person whose opinion I would appreciate hearing since you are a TikTok success in a very professional way. Your TikTok things with wine were great. So, how do you feel about this?
So I have the very unique experience of having great success on TikTok and then also having family that works for military and government. I believe that we have to do whatever is right to protect our data, to protect ourselves, our country. So I am not against the TikTok ban because I trust my people. I trust that with information that they're giving me, and I'm not talking about necessarily the government or whatever else someone might try to take from it, but my people who work in these spaces say that there is major concern. I trust that there's major concern. When it comes to social media, you have to learn not to become married or overly invested in the numbers. And I think that that's probably one of the harder things that people are going to deal with in getting rid of TikTok. Wait one moment. It's it's not easy, letting go of those numbers, letting go of those interactions. People, all you can do is try to get everyone to come to your other sites. But the truth is, if you have a message that needs to be heard and you are consistent, people are going to hear it. The people that you've lost will come back to you. The people that have never seen you will find you. And I think it's important just to focus on the work and consistency rather than being tied to a single platform or the numbers and advantages that you've had. It's difficult, but life changes. Things aren't easy. Things are taken away and other things are born. I believe that life is cyclical in that way, and the more you are able to adapt and figure out, okay, if TikTok is going away, TikTok is gone. What's next? How do I refocus? How do I show up on a different platform if I believe my mission and the message I have is important? So hopefully I'm making sense, but I believe the message and just being consistent is way more important than the platform. And the people who need to hear your message will. And that goes for every single platform. I don't care if it's YouTube, it doesn't matter. It's important that we focus on consistency and our message. And again, people who need to hear it will get it, they'll hear it. So I don't know.
I'm so glad I asked this question. I'm just going to say I'm really glad I asked the question because I know that it was, kind of a loaded question. But I I'm really happy to hear your response because I agree with you. I my kids hate this, but when I was young, there was no Google, there was no social media, there was none of this, and I love watching these platforms come and go and evolve and change. Um, and I think it's fascinating. I openly admit I am not the best at using social media. I find it a bit of a burden. I do my best, but I enjoy engaging with it myself. Just producing content for it is not something that I find comes naturally. I have to work at it, but I do love the phenomenon that is social media. And I agree with you. If there is a platform, that leaves, you know, a country or a body of information insecure, then it's time for that platform to go. It's not going to be a vacuum. Something will come and fill it. So um, I was really happy to hear your response, and I threw that out there, kind of out of left field at you. So that was a really graceful answer, and I appreciate
Yeah, I think it's
it.
important to say because I know whenever I have conversations about social media, I'm usually the only person on the panel or the discussion that comes with my perspective. But I went through something with TikTok back in 2022, I believe, that had to fix my perspective. I posted something. I mean, I had so many videos on decanting, but I decided to make one creative post. And when I tell you it backfired, the comments, it was horrible. People were trying to cancel me. I mean, it was a horrible experience. And in that moment, I realized I have way too much emphasis on pleasing these people. This is my platform and I'm here to talk about something important. If I get caught up in what they have to say and how many followers I have and interactions, we pay attention to analytics, we pay attention to data. We want to make sure that what we're doing is making impact, of course, but that shouldn't be the reason why you're doing it. The reason why needs to be the mission. And I believe that as long as you have something to say, if TikTok's not the place to say it because it no longer is and access to you, you go somewhere where you can. And again, the people who need to hear it will find
Yeah,
you.
I 100% agree. And it's great to hear that from your mouth because, as I said, I'm a lot older than you, so people don't really want to hear what I have to say about social media. But what yeah, what you have to say is much more important. As I said, I love social media. I know that I'm not great at it, but I love watching it evolve, and I'm really pleased to hear you say that about it. And I'm sorry that you had a bad experience with it.
It's
Yeah,
social
it's social
media.
media.
We've all had
Well,
bad experiences. It's
I know,
people, people being
I know.
people.
Well, listen, before I let you go, I'm just going to cycle back to what you said very early on about how much you love Italy. So, what is your next visit in Italy going
Mhm.
to be? And when you're in Italy, what's your favorite wine to drink?
Oh my gosh.
I know, another
Oh,
question. I just throw them out there at the end.
okay, so I told you I'm a Sicily girl. Palermo is absolutely my
You're singing
heart
my
and
song,
my
Etna
joy.
is my heart. I'm hoping to move there this year.
Yes.
So I was just in
Oh
Palermo
my
in
god.
December, and I'm hoping to move to Etna this year. So we are meant to be
Oh
friends,
my
I think.
gosh. May I visit you, please?
Of course.
Let that be the next. um and I have a lot of great Sicilian wines that I mean, I know that when people think Italy, they don't think Sicily, but I just feel like that's just a grave disservice. So I love Donna Fugata. I love Christy Manini. Oh gosh, she's gonna hate me that I got her name wrong. Um, I'm sorry. But there are plenty of different wineries in Sicily that I absolutely love, and I could go all day. Maybe I'll send you a nice little list, and when you post, that people can just go visit. But yeah.
All right, it's your last day in Sicily. What's in your glass?
Ooh. Okay. Um, I guess I have to do like a man, why are you doing this to me? Let me think. You know what? So Donna Fugata, they have
I
yes,
love
right?
them. Fabulous
What is
producers.
that? They have that dessert wine. And
Ben
yes,
Rie.
that 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 can be
That is a good choice. Ben Rie is a
yes,
pasito sweet wine from the island of
yes.
Pantelleria. So anyone who hasn't had it, it is an explosion in your mouth. I have a daughter who calls that
Oh my
sunshine for the
goodness.
belly.
It is absolutely just phenomenal. Every time I go, I have it, and I'm always just happy. And by the way anyone who goes, and what would I be eating as well when I'm there? Probably not with the last glass of wine, but what is up with the tartare? They have amazing tartare in Sicily, in Palermo exactly, but it's like it's insane. So yeah. Uh,
Well, it's because none of the fish is processed with all kinds of God knows what. So yeah, that's a whole nother conversation for another day. Well, listen, thank you so much, and I'm going to let you off the hook because that was a great answer to my left field question. Uh, and I hope you are feeling better soon. And definitely let me know when you're coming to Italy. We will definitely get together. But I feel like this was a really positive and thoughtful conversation. So it took us like I don't know how many emails to make
right.
this happen, and I'm really glad we
I'm
did.
happy
So
to.
I wish you all the very best, and let's keep in
Absolutely.
touch.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you for listening, and remember to tune in next Wednesday when I'll be chatting with another fascinating guest. Italian Wine Podcast is among the leading wine podcasts in the world and the only one with a daily show. Tune in every day and discover all our different shows. You can find us at ItalianWinePodcast.com, SoundCloud, Spotify, Himalaya, or wherever you get your pods.